for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
Stay 10 feet away from me.
With this traffic stop.
Why? You stay 10
your ID now.
10 feet away from
10
me.
feet now.
10 feet away from me.
Even today, every day, somebody is being kidnapped for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
You know what a protest is?
You know what a dentist is? All right. Interfere. All right. Interfere.
Even today, every day, somebody is being kidnapped for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
Stay 10 feet away from me.
With this traffic stop.
Why? You stay 10
your ID now.
10 feet away from
10
me.
feet now.
10 feet away from me.
Even today, every day, somebody is being kidnapped for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
You know what a protest is?
You know what a dentist is? All right. Interfere. All right. Interfere.
What is up, everybody? We are live. Live. What'd you guys think of that intro, huh? I guess we can take the banner down that the live stream begins shortly. We're going to start this thing off. Well, it was kind of an interesting day. Just to give you a little background, not that anybody cares, but I appreciate folks for joining us. Yeah, we got people in the house. We have Cops Have Duties. Cops Have Duties wasn't too kind to Mr. Carroll and Mr. Galt, but we'll see. Mr. Galt has been ordered to appear, so we'll see if he wants to avoid contempt of public opinion court here and join us tonight. But anyways, let me just show you kind of what I'm talking about. Juan Galt came out with this video. This is the video that Juan Galt came out with today. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Juan Galt decided to put in his thumbnail, excellent judge schools another Michigan stops it in court and proves Galt right. You listening, BSBT and Wolvie? Oh, Mr. Galt, that was nice of you to put me in your thumbnail right there. I have listened to everything that you have to say, and the more I listen, the more confused I get. Do you want to know the reason why? Here, I'll play you a clip from one of the times that you were on the show. Here is a clip from when you were on the show. In this clip, you're going to say the judge made a mistake in telling me inaccurate information in a different case. So this is a different case, different courtroom, but you're going to admit that the judge made a mistake. So here you go, Mr. Galt. This is why I am confused. Here we go.
To the Constitution. How's that?
Okay, so they compare, they don't interpret, but I would disagree. I would say that, you know, they're interpreting the law, and they're interpreting it, you know, however they need to interpret it to impose their will.
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
My case.
I'm listening.
Well, in my case, you just agreed that the judge made a mistake. Correct?
Okay, and?
So that judge is still interpreting the law to bend it to try to impose her will onto me. She made a mistake. So, Mr. Galt, what you said right there, Mr. Galt, is that the judge made a mistake. So how am I supposed to trust what legal professionals tell me when they keep telling me conflicting information, right? I mean, here, this is from the video here. I'll put this back up so you guys can follow along with what's going on here. This is from the Juan Galt video that he made today, where Mr. Galt says, excellent judge. I would disagree that he's an excellent judge. But anyways, he's allowing some crazy prosecutor down in Taylor to try to convict me of police interference when they've got no injured party on the other side. Okay? All they've got is state agents coming after me. So is he an excellent judge for allowing that shit? I mean, seriously, they'll have me back for what, the 7th or 8th time, Mr. Galt? When they haven't even given me any factual evidence of jurisdiction, then all your explanations don't make sense. So here, this is from your video. Here's what was said today, and then here are some of the claims you made, Mr. Galt. Here we go.
So I hope BSBT and Wolvie will watch this, as any soft sit should, and learn. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
This is your motion, sir. Go ahead.
Well, have you read the motion already? Right. Well, just first, I want to say on the so-called charge against me, I am entering a special appearance. Okay, that is in no way a general jurisdictional granting appearance. I challenge the jurisdiction of this court. Their contract that I have knowingly, willingly, and voluntarily entered into with this court that grants any jurisdictional.
I thought I was crazy for challenging jurisdiction, Mr. Galt. I thought I was crazy.
If there's any such contract.
This guy's challenging jurisdiction. This judge isn't saying he's crazy.
Also want to say I'm here by threat and duress. I'm not here willingly.
Good. Putting that on record. You're there for threat and duress. Yep. That's the only reason you're there.
Do you want the 30 days or do you want to go to trial today?
Well, let's see what the discovery evidence has to say. But first, you know, if they could, the very first thing out of there, they could send the factual evidence of jurisdiction. That would be great. It should be a one-page document. If the prosecutor filed it, fantastic.
Mr. Lanto, you're talking crazy.
So, Mr. Galt, I am talking crazy to one judge, right? Quote unquote judge. They're a public servant, right? So Joseph right here, Joseph Slavin, today, are you telling me he spent probably a half hour explaining to somebody something that's crazy? Are you seriously going to go there, Mr. Galt? Are you going to tell me that Judge Slavin right here, Joseph Slavin, are you telling me that he explained something for about, I mean, I see your video there, Mr. Galt, is 14 minutes, 55, so close to 15 minutes, right? A 15-minute video, and then old Squishy Gardner had this on his channel, and it went on quite a bit past the 15-minute mark. So you mean to tell me, did this quote-unquote judge just spend about a half hour explaining something to somebody for talking crazy? Because I was just told by that other judge, the quote-unquote judge, that I was talking crazy. So which is it? Is it crazy to talk about it or is it not? Let's get that question out of the way first. Let's get that logical question out of the way. What up, Thing? Appreciate you being in here. Epic Cop Watcher, what's up? What up to you as well? Guilty Galt, right? So, Mr. Galt, if you're listening, because you said you might show up if, you know, we could hash this out. But Mr. Guilty Galt, I am challenging you right now to explain to me why I was told by one quote-unquote judge that I was talking crazy, but somehow this other judge spends a half hour explaining something that's crazy to somebody else. Let's give you another wide variety of answers that I've had to the jurisdiction thing, right? Let's see. How did Mr. Carroll answer this? Well, first off, I wanted to see this from Mr. Carroll. He's the other attorney that's named in the title of this video, by the way. And Mr. Carroll says this. Well, this is the question I asked him. The ticket is the tangible proof. I thought you said it was the legislature passing laws enacted, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Carroll has a different answer for what jurisdiction is. This is the confusing part. Why are there so many explanations for what jurisdiction is. And then Paul Carroll says, no, the ticket isn't the tangible proof. Then AZ Jeep Girl says something different. She's supposed to be an attorney. I mean, she's a pretty sham attorney at that, if you ask me. She's the one that tried to convince me that judges have rights. An attorney that would say something so absurd as that judges have rights? Are you kidding me? And you would take legal advice from this attorney? AZ Jeep Girl, another attorney in regards to jurisdiction, says, yes, the location address of the crime citation determines jurisdiction. Okay, so geographic area, AZ Jeep Girl. Geographic area, is that what you're going to use to connect the codes and the ordinances to me? That is the ultimate question. Okay, and now I don't want an explanation for what jurisdiction is. I don't want the explanation. What I want is to hold the tangible proof in my hands. I want to be able to hold it. If you don't know what it looks like, tangible proof of jurisdiction in a military court, this is what it looks like. Right here. In a military court, if you ask for factual evidence of jurisdiction, this is what they hand you. Your enlistment document. You notice how down there with number 3, it says subject to the military justice system, and then you sign it? Holy shit, military court now has jurisdiction. That's what I'm talking about. I want to see what the prosecutor has passed for factual evidence of jurisdiction. Okay? But in that last clip that I played, you saw that I was told that I was talking crazy. Well, let's hear this judge go and try to explain this shit. Apparently, this is crazy.
And just a note here, you notice he said jurisdiction is a matter of law, so he looks to the law to determine if he has jurisdiction.
Typically, a plaintiff bears the burden of establishing jurisdiction over a defendant. However, a plaintiff here, the prosecution, only needs to make a prima facie showing of jurisdiction in order to defeat any motion to dismiss.
I hope BSBT heard that, a prima facie case.
Based on a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction. That
Well, Mr. Galt, you hope I am listening. Well, I did listen to that prima facie evidence, but I didn't hear any of that from the judge that you earlier admitted made Let me make sure I have audio. Let me make sure my audio is good. Okay, so where did we leave off? Here, let's put this link in the chat for Mr. Galt when he gets here. Somebody go tell Mr. Galt that we're having this party and he's invited, because I want him to explain why I get so many answers, so many different answers to the same question. And I want to know if I'll be able to hold the factual evidence jurisdiction in my hand. That I would love to know. Not some long-winded explanation. It's all dark in here. Hold on. I'm trying to post this. Ouch, my ears hurt again. Seriously? I'm trying to post the link to the chat. Or the link to the live stream, I should say, not the link to the chat. Dang it, me misspeaking again. Yeah, exactly. All right, so here's the link to the chat there, Mr. Galt. If you're out there and you're listening, you need to come up here. Okay, here you go, Mr. Galt. Why do I get the wide variety of answers? I'm trying to paste this into the chat. I'm having technical issues with getting this link in there, but I promise you, once you click on that link, I will add you. We can hash this out like men. By the way, Mr. Galt, I want to know, what do you think of a killer? What do you think of a red rummer? What do you think of that? What do you think of a guy that commits MURD3R? I want to know what your opinion is on a guy who commits, the M word. It should be showing up any minute. There it is. It's in the chat. The link is in there. Am I going on Wrangler's live stream? Oh, Wrangler, hold on. We have Mr. Galt in the house, I believe.
Yes, I'm here. Are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. There we go. I don't know what happened, but okay. So, did you watch the clips at the beginning of this?
No.
Hello?
Hello?
I'm here. Did you watch the clips at the beginning of this? I didn't get an answer.
I answered you. No, I didn't watch them.
Okay, well, here, that's convenient. Why don't we play those again real fast, and then that way anybody coming in kind of knows what we're talking about. One of the last times you were on the show, a few times back, do you remember when you admitted that the judge made a mistake in one of my cases?
Well, I did see that part. I mean, I started watching, but then you dropped off. Yeah, I don't recall why I said that she was incorrect. And you really don't cover it in that clip that you played?
Can
Yeah,
you
but
tell?
you did admit that she made a mistake and she fell for a trap. So I was just wondering if we can just, agree on that so we can set it aside so I don't have to play an unnecessary clip to remind you that you actually agreed that the judge made the mistake.
Yeah, I think that was about. I can't remember you asking something about who has to prove jurisdiction or something. I can't remember.
Well, it was
You can,
about, it was about the script. When I led that judge, the unsuspecting judge, I said, one of the first things I asked was, am I presumed innocent till proven guilty? She said yes. Then I said, okay, am I presumed innocent of all the elements of a charge? She said yes. Then I said, am I presumed innocent if I'm presumed innocent of all the elements of a charge, is one of those elements jurisdiction? Guess what she said?
okay, I remember now. And she said yes because she didn't understand where you were coming from. But yeah, because there's no such thing as being guilty or innocent of jurisdiction. It doesn't exist.
So am I presumed guilty of jurisdiction?
There's no such thing as being guilty of jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is not a crime to be guilty
Is
of.
it an element of the here's the way it was explained to me. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. The elements of a crime, all the elements, including jurisdiction, it's like baking a cake, right? And in order to bake that cake and have it rise and be nice and fluffy and delectable for your kid's birthday party, in order to make that cake properly, you have to have all the ingredients. The elements are like the ingredients. If you're missing one of the ingredients, you have no cake.
Well, you have a cake. It's just not either going to taste right or look right or anything like that.
Okay, so another analogy. Let's see if we can pin it.
Can we just talk about what is instead of talking in analogies?
Well, let me just run this one last one past you just to make sure we're on the same page, right? Like, imagine all the elements of a charge are like light switches, right? They all have to be in the on position. Imagine if just one of those elements is turned to the off position and it doesn't complete the circuit, so you have no light. Come on. Wouldn't you agree that the elements are similar to the light switches in a room where all of them have to be in the on position for you to get a light?
Okay, here's a little bit of more free legal education. Elements of a crime are the things that are laid out statutorily in the law of what has to be met in order for that crime to be proven. Jurisdiction is never an element of a charge or a crime.
Well, then why did Mr. Carroll say it was a quasi-element of a crime?
Well, you'll have to ask Mr. Carroll why he says what he does. I mean, he's a young guy.
Well, Mr. Carroll, come on up here.
And what it is, it's an element of a procedural element. In other words, without jurisdiction, a court can't hear the case. It's like, for instance, let's say your traffic ticket here was filed in a divorce court, family court. Well, the judge would say, hey, I don't have jurisdiction to hear this. But that doesn't mean your charge goes away. It means that that case in that court would be dismissed and refiled in the proper case. The charge doesn't go away. The elements of the charge don't go away. It's a procedural element, not an element of a charge.
So it's a procedural element, not an element of the charge.
Right.
And we're going to stick to that one now.
Well, we're talking about procedure now. We're not talking about evidence. We're talking about the rules of procedure versus the rules of evidence, for instance.
You I have to revert this back to a little bit of childish stuff just to, keep the entertainment and the humor, that. So what do you think about this? Should the court have jurisdiction over this crime right here?
Well, it depends. It depends on whether he receives a citation or something like that. You have to have, just like the judge told in my last most recent video you're talking about. The judge says that you brought yourself into the jurisdiction of the court by being on the public roads and then being alleged to have violated a law.
Once
Okay, so that
just a second. Once that happens, the court's jurisdiction is invoked. It magically appears, if you want to call it that.
okay, so it magically appears. It just appeared out of thin air.
No, it was
Then how is
invoked.
the
It was
court?
invoked.
So how is the court going to prove that then? If it just appeared out of thin air, how is the court going to prove that? When did it appear? When exactly was the time from when it didn't appear to when it appeared? And how does the court prove that?
MCL 600.701.
And that proves, okay, so the written instruments that were produced by public servants are now all of a sudden applicable to every living body. What about Sandra the orangutan? Could they apply that to Sandra the orangutan because she's now considered a person?
We already covered that. That was in Argentina, and that was said by somebody down there and reversed a few months later.
So the law is going to claim that an orangutan is a person, and then and then we're supposed to believe what the law says.
I don't know. That's Argentina. Do you live in Argentina? Are we talking about Argentina? Here again, you're bringing in a red herring. We're not talking about Argentina. We're talking about Michigan. And Michigan, remember, it's a court of law. Jurisdiction is a matter of law. So, and law in a court of law is the primary authoritative source.
So is that what I'm gonna? Is that the explanation I'm gonna hold in my hand when they go to give me the factual evidence of jurisdiction? Is that what I'm gonna hold in my hand that the prosecutor passed?
I don't know what you're gonna hold in your hand. You can hold your dick in your hand for all I care.
Yeah, I know. I know we don't know what I'm gonna hold in my hand. That's the issue. Well, but we're getting to the heart of the issue.
No, because you have held it in your hand when you received the citation.
Right. So I went to the courthouse and I got the traffic ticket, right, from my old case because I asked to see the factual evidence of jurisdiction. But then when I ask attorneys if a ticket is factual evidence of jurisdiction, why do about 70% of them say no?
Why do about 70% of the judges you've been in front of say it's on the when you ask for factual evidence of jurisdiction, they say it's on the ticket?
I don't know, maybe because you can't believe a damn word one of these public servants ever tell you. Like, for example, even when they put it in writing, you can't believe what they say. I had a judge in Novi. That judge in Novi sentenced me to 10 days contempt in jail and then had me out within 24 hours. So even when they put it in writing, I can't go by the arbitrary opinion of a public servant because they lie all the time.
Well, have you looked at MCL 600.701? That's not a lie. It's right there in black and white, and you can hold that law in your hand.
So that's what they're going to that's what they're going to hand me when I ask for the factual evidence of jurisdiction. That's what they're going to hand me?
Nope. They're going to hand you the citation.
Okay, so now they're going to hand me the citation, but then I have to use that citation to go look up the MCL 700, whatever it was, blah, blah, blah. And then I have to link those two together to make those codes and those ordinances and statutes apply to me.
If you're going to play lawyer, yes. If you're just going to play doofus,
I don't want to play lawyer. I just want to play dumb idiot that doesn't understand anything and is there to ask some simple logical questions to point out the fact that I don't think that the factual evidence of jurisdiction exists. I think there's a belief. I think there's a belief that's involved. And if you believe it, Mr. Galt, then it's true that, factual evidence of jurisdiction is whatever you said you believe it to be.
No, factual evidence of jurisdiction is the law because you're in a court of law and you don't bring in logical questions. You bring in red herrings, things that don't matter. You bring in Argentina, you bring in orangutans, you bring in the military justice, you bring in all these red herrings. So you don't follow logic.
Well, but you know that I used that example from military court to show you that it's important in military court. That's pretty much one of the only reasons I brought that up.
Well, but that's illogical. Because
why is it illogical to say Why is it
Because
illogical to say that jurisdiction is important in one court but not another?
Because they're different courts. That's why. So it's illogical.
And did you read what people said? It's an Argentinian orangutan, but it was the United States that granted her personhood.
No, it was Argentina.
So the courts in the United States can make a orangutan into a person. Don't you think that they can fabricate this jurisdiction thing to dupe the masses?
Well, they can only dupe the masses that cannot read and comprehend. And unfortunately, the majority of people in America are that way. They're ignorant and they don't comprehend. They don't read well. They can't put 2 and 2 together to get 4. They start going off into the weeds about, well, this court over here says this and this orangutan does that. And they totally forget about where they're at. You are in Michigan courts. That's what I'm talking about. That's the law that I'm using. That's the laws that's being used against you. And that is what's relevant and logical. Everything else is a non sequitur fallacy.
Okay, so answer this question then, because Mr. Carroll was too chicken to answer it. And I want to know what your answer is. It's either yes or no. There's no in between. It's not maybe.
My answer to what?
Is the proof of jurisdiction on the ticket?
Yes.
Yes. So you're saying yes. And that's your final answer.
That's a prima facie evidence of jurisdiction. Yes, sir.
So that's your final answer. Do you want to phone a friend? Because we can have you call Paul Carroll so that you're both on the same page. And even better yet, you know who I'd really like you to call? I'd really like you to call Artie. Because remember when you agreed with Artie when this is what Artie said? Because here is what Artie said when asked about factual evidence of jurisdiction. This is what Artie said.
BT says, is there any factual evidence to prove that a private civilian has any obligation to follow a written instrument called the traffic code? Yes. Force of arms. Yes. Force of arms.
What does force of arms mean?
Means you have a gun.
BSBT says, is there any factual evidence to prove that a private civilian has any obligation to follow a written instrument called the traffic code? Yes. Force of arms.
Have I not answered that previous? Have I not answered that?
Right, you've said that the force of arms is the executive's branch of showing their jurisdiction. That's what you said. The judicial branch of showing their jurisdiction is the paper they signed to have the executive branch take you to a jail cell. The legislature's form of jurisdiction over you is that they pass laws that as long as the majority go along with, everybody has to follow, regardless of how they feel about those laws or whether those laws have any sort of corpus delicti or any evidence that a crime is actually taking place.
Well, you're misusing corpus delicti. You don't know what you're talking about when you say that.
Well, please explain corpus delicti to the crowd that is here that might take interest in this.
Corpus delicti is the elements of a crime.
Well, is it the body of evidence for a crime?
I just told you what it is.
But I thought it was I thought the literal translation was body of evidence. Like, you know, there has to be a victim, for example, in order to have a crime.
Wrong. No, that's wrong. Yeah, that's your misinterpretation.
So the lady that I had this conversation with, the attorney that I had this conversation with, who is now the lead public defender in the county that I'm in Oakland County, Michigan, Paulette Michelle Lofton was incorrect when she said that yes, the corpus delicti is a body of evidence, and yes, you know, it refers to a victim or having a victim to establish that a crime actually took place. Is she incorrect then?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so you're telling me the lead public defender in my county is incorrect.
I'm saying a lot of government attorneys are incorrect.
Okay, and then you're also telling me that the judge that made a mistake in my case, she was also incorrect, correct?
I've seen judges throughout my 40 plus years make a lot of mistakes. Yes.
Okay. So now you're claiming that an attorney and a judge are incorrect, but you're correct because you're the attorney that determines that those other two legal professionals are incorrect. Do I understand that?
Well, body of a crime refers to the elements of the crime.
Okay, and what are the elements of a crime?
Well, normally there are three elements called mens rea, actus reus, and concordance, meaning there's certain act and you had an intent and they came together and committed a crime. Now, traffic laws.
Right. So don't you
hold it. Traffic laws are different. Traffic laws are what's called strict liability crimes. In other words, there's only two elements, not three. The only two elements are that there is a law and the action you took violated that law. That's all there is to the elements of a traffic infraction.
I want to know, why does Angelica Smith say that she doesn't support you, Mr. Galt? She says, you think I support Juan Galt, and then she gives laughy faces. What's that all about?
Why don't you ask her instead of me? I'm not a fucking mind reader. I'm a legal expert.
Well, I am. Well, I am. And yes, no victim, no crime. It's really that simple. And then the judge in that case, I don't have the clip queued up, so the audience is going to have to take my word for it, is that judge also stated that, well, if I told you I have a plane and I can have a trip to Florida with no airfare fees because I own the plane and I pilot it, but I've never had a class and I've never had a license, would you fly with me? Do you remember when the judge said that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so now, isn't the judge using a logical fallacy? Because it's like, of course, if you learn that about somebody, why the fuck would you get in a plane with them in the first place? So it's still about personal choice. It's the individual making the choice. If I want to hop in a plane with somebody who's never flown before, why does the government get to tell me I can't do that?
Why do you go off into the weeds and not comprehend what he was saying?
Well, because I'm trying to get through the weeds so I understand what he's saying. Because first off, you can't trust these public servants that lie to you. I mean, would you say it's an honorable court if they lie?
No, I wouldn't say it's an honorable court if they lie.
Right. So that public servant acting like a merciless freaking judge up in Clarkston, the very first thing I caught her doing was lying to me. It took me about a minute and a half of trying to work that out of her. I said, did you get the paperwork I dropped off? She says, well, I got some paperwork. What paperwork are you talking about? I'm like, well, I took the time to label them and bring them up there and drop them off. Did you get all 7 pages? And she goes, oh, I don't know if I got all 7 pages. I'm like, okay, well, the first 4 were the affidavit of status. The other 3 were the notice of deficiencies. I have a copy of it. Do I need to read it into the record? And then all of a sudden she goes, oh, nope, I have it. It's right here in front of me. Whoopsie daisy. You don't think that I catching that bitch lying? You don't think that you think it's honorable for her to lie to me and claim she doesn't have paperwork when clearly it's sitting right in front of her face?
Well, if she was lying instead of being mistaken, she would have never admitted that she was mistaken. I believe she also said, "Oh, here it is. It was stapled to this," or something like that, if I recall correctly.
No, as soon as I said I have a copy of it and I'll read it into the record, she came up, she just spilled the beans right there on herself and said, oh, no, I have it right here. Why do you think she wouldn't want me to read that into the record?
Because it's irrelevant.
Right. So, but if it's irrelevant, you would think, oh, yeah, go ahead. Just read that into the record. It's only 3 pages. It'll only take you a couple minutes to read it into the record. Go ahead. If it's nonsense, then even better to have nonsense on the record. Wouldn't you agree?
That's why they had judges rule on what is admissible evidence and what is inadmissible evidence. That was considered inadmissible evidence. Had no value.
Mr. Galt, will you please answer this question that's on the screen right now? Have you ever won a court case before? I think that question is directed towards me. Have I ever won my court cases? Let me remind you, I have you on record and on the stream when we talked about Novi Court when they dismissed my case nolle prosequi or nolle prosequi or key, whichever one is the legalese term you use. Do you remember discussing the Novi case and they dismissed that?
Yes, they dismissed the case without prejudice, meaning they could bring it back. They do that a lot because maybe they don't, maybe they're missing something. They say, okay, we'll stop it right here. And if we look into it further, we'll refile the charges. So that's not uncommon.
So would you consider that a win or a loss for me?
Well, if they never refile, I would say that was in your benefit. Yeah.
Okay, so now, did you get the video I copied you on with me in Pontiac where I challenged jurisdiction, then all of a sudden, mysteriously, the next court date, they dropped the case?
No, I have no idea about that.
Well, I did copy you in that, and I did link you in that. As a matter of fact, at the end of this live stream, when I remember, I'm going to post in my community section, I'll tag you in it, so you can listen to what happened in Pontiac when I got a disorderly charge. Because that one was, guess what happened in that case?
Are we going to play a guessing game or what?
Well, you said you didn't see it. Okay, spoiler alert, they dropped that one and dismissed the charges on that one as well.
Okay,
now, I don't know why. What was said on the record, the prosecutor said on the record after reviewing the video and speaking to the witnesses, at this time we are not moving forward on Mr. Lanto's case. And then she said, case dismissed, and the judge said, how do I feel about that? And I said, yeah, that's good, or whatever. What I should have said is, can we lock these doors so that we can trap this criminal prosecutor in here and fucking take care of this bitch right now? That's what I should have said, right?
Jesus, Josh, I don't know. You're going off on some shit that I don't know what, you know. I know you're trying to be entertaining, I guess, to the people here, but I don't know.
I'm coming back to the question of Sir Stewie Griffin, Esquire, L. Bay, Doctor of Pepper, who said, have you won a court case before? And I'm trying to help you recall, because you guys do a real good job of paying attention to like the losses, or, you know, if a round doesn't go my way, right? You guys are quick to jump on that. But wouldn't it be beneficial for your audience to hear case dismissed after I challenge jurisdiction?
Only if that was part of the ruling. Sure, I would show that all over if that was part of the ruling, but that wasn't part of the ruling. There was no ruling.
And why do I get arrested so much, Mr. Galt? Do you want, I mean,
I didn't ask you that.
No, Richard Fulmer did, and I'm trying to include the audience a little bit here, Mr. Galt. Mr. Fulmer wanted to know why I get arrested so much. Why do you think I get arrested, Mr. Galt?
Because you appear to violate laws.
Okay, in that, did you see the arrest video from Taylor?
I don't know. Which one was it, Josh?
Well, here, I'll play this one for you, and I want to know if you think I'm guilty of police interference. I'll play it for you real quick. It's 47 seconds. You can watch me get arrested.
Even today, every day, somebody is being kidnapped for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
Stay 10 feet away from me.
With this traffic stop.
Why? You
Provide
stay
me your ID now.
10 feet away from
10
me.
feet now.
10 feet away from me.
Even today, every day, somebody is being kidnapped for using naughty words on sidewalks. Right.
You know what a protest is?
You know what a dentist is? All right. Interfere. All right. Interfere.
What is your opinion, your legal opinion on why I got arrested in that video?
Well, the only opinion I have is what the cop says, but from that short cherry-picked clip you just played, totally out of context, it did not appear to me that you were obstructing or interfering, but I don't, you know.
I mean, that's what everybody tells me. I mean, before that, I was even further away, and what I did is I walked up and I said, this is Borg, and Borg's a little liar. This little piggy has been generating revenue for the state all damn day long. This is Borg. Borg's a little liar. and he's like, "Oh, I gotta have backup," and then I pan the camera, and then that douchebag's in my face going hands on.
Yeah, well, that's, the consequences you may face as being a political activist. So there you go.
So I'm a political activist?
Well, that appeared what you were trying to accomplish is something.
That's going to piss a lot of people off because I'm going to clip this part of the video, right?
I don't know, and I don't care. You can do whatever you want. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that cherry-picked short clip I saw, I didn't see anything that you did that could rise to the level of interference. That's just my first prima facie reaction to it.
Okay, I appreciate that primal facial reaction to that. But now let me ask you another legal question here. Okay, this is a legal question. Is do you think that arrest was more contempt of cop or interference?
I don't know what contempt of cop is. That's something I think's just been made up.
Well, contempt of cop is, when the police get butthurt by the words that you say, and then instead of grabbing some tissues and wiping their tears from their eyes and maybe getting a binky to soothe them when they're all upset like that, what they do is they like to go hands-on, and they like to try to invent some charges against somebody. Okay, another legal question. This one might be better suited for you. This legal question, okay. Now, in the first proceeding, I asked the judge, do I have the right to be informed of the cause and nature of the charges? What do you think the judge answered?
Another question? Why don't you just make your point and then I'll
Okay. So the judge said yes. When I said, do I have the right to be informed of the cause and nature of the charges? The judge said yes, right? Okay. So now the question is, the legal question here is, the prosecutor, the day of the trial, the prosecutor had to dismiss the charges, well, according on official court record, without prejudice. I wanted it to be dismissed with prejudice, but they didn't do a good job listening to what I wanted there. They just listened to the prosecutor say that they had to refile the charges under 3 separate charges. These are facts. The fact is the prosecutor had to dismiss the one charge so that he could refile it as 3 separate charges. Now, going back to my initial question, which was, do I have the right to be informed of the cause and nature of the charges? How would the court have ever clearly explained the cause and nature of the charges to me when it's clear that the prosecutor didn't even understand the cause and nature of the charges because they had to refile them?
Why do you ask me questions like I'm a mind reader? I can just tell you this is that you never let me finish. This is what I was talking about being childish. You interrupt me when I'm talking.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's not uncommon for a DA to dismiss one case to refile charges. Now, that's one issue. The second issue is being informed of the cause and nature of the charge. And that also is answered when the judge reads you the charges, tells you what the possible punishment for that charge is. That's informing you, according to the 6th Amendment, that meets that requirement of informing you of the nature of the nature and cause of the charge.
Well, I would agree that it explains the nature of the charge and the consequence thereof, but it does nothing to me to explain the cause. Like what cause? What was the catalyst?
Okay, the nature of it, for instance, is traffic. The cause of it is an alleged violation of a traffic law. That's the nature and cause.
Right. So if they're going to allege an allegation, but the prosecutor doesn't understand it themselves, how would they have efficiently and sufficiently explained it to me?
Well, you're assuming that he didn't understand. That's the thing is that's what your assumption is. If they looked at it,
but the facts show that he had to dismiss the case and refile it because he didn't understand.
No, because there was some mistake that he had made or something. I don't know. We're trying to figure out what
he made a
somebody. There you go again. We're trying to figure out and read his mind, which we can't do. The bottom line is it happens all the time. They will dismiss one charge and then come back and recharge. It has nothing to do with whether they understood it or didn't understand it or whatever.
Okay, so are we going to stick to this claim that in your legal professional opinion, that it's not uncommon for a prosecutor to dismiss charges and then refile them because it's not uncommon for the prosecutors to fuck up?
Well, yeah, it's not uncommon for human beings to fuck up.
Okay, so we're at the stage where human beings fuck up, right? And then let's bring this back to the variety of answers I've gotten on jurisdiction. And then I'm the one that's crazy because I ask these questions?
Well, I think
first off, number one, am I crazy for asking the question?
Oh, you're not certified crazy? No.
Okay, so I'm not certified crazy. Then why do you think the judge? Let's just speculate. Okay, we're not holding you to your legal opinion here as concrete evidence. We're just going to speculate as to why that judge said I was talking crazy when it came to factual evidence of jurisdiction.
Because in his world, in the legal world, that is a crazy question. Because you say factual evidence of jurisdiction when jurisdiction is a matter of law. You have matters of facts and matters of law. Now, I address your factual evidence of jurisdiction because I know what you're fucking looking for. Merb didn't know what you were looking for. These judges don't. You hear you fucking interrupt me like my fucking grandkids.
Okay, go ahead.
If you can't hold your thought till I'm finished, then we're going to not get very far. The judge didn't understand your question. But the bottom line is here, just understand, like the judge that is in my latest video, that determining jurisdiction is not determined so much as fact as it is law. I look at the law and says, do these factual circumstances that are before me fit into my jurisdiction? So he looks at the law and says, okay, I've got this in front of me here. Here's Josh, and here's his ticket. Let me look at it. Okay, this ticket was written at 124 Main Street. Well, that's in my territory, so I have territorial jurisdiction. And it was Josh Lanto, and he was the one handed the ticket at this place in my territory jurisdiction, so I have personal jurisdiction. And then he says, okay, it's a traffic court, and I'm a traffic judge, so I have subject matter jurisdiction. Therefore, I have jurisdiction to hear this dispute. And that's the bottom line.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, let's say we're in the Soviet Union or Russia back in 1917, right? And you're brought up on charges. And then in 1918, the Russian Revolution happens, right? Are you still subject to the jurisdiction of those charges?
Why are you bringing up Russia? Why are you bringing up the
Because I want to know if I
Revolution
get mailed, let's say, for example, if, an ancestor from, Poland got some documents in the mail from the Prussian Empire and said, the Prussian Empire is requiring you to come to court because of something that, your great-great-grandfather did. Right? Is anybody going to believe that the fucking Prussian Empire is actually bringing charges like that?
I have no idea. I don't practice law in Russia. I've never practiced law in the Soviet Union. I don't practice law in those areas. So, no, your point is a red herring. You're bringing in stuff that has no relevance whatsoever. That's illogical.
So the state of Michigan is not a made-up fictional entity.
It's a political entity, if that's what you're asking.
A political entity or a fictional entity?
Well, they are fictions from that standpoint, if you wanted to, but it's a metaphor. Actually, the state is a metaphor for a group of people.
Okay, so at least we're getting somewhere. At least we can agree that it's a fictitious, construct of the mind. Like somebody named that this geographic area was this name, and now somebody else is going out using that name to prosecute their fellow man. Wouldn't you agree that that's fraud?
No, it's not fraud.
Well, how could it be anything other than fraud if they're using a fictitious entity to cause harm to another human being?
Because it's not, it's not a fictitious entity in that it doesn't exist. Because there are.
You just said it was
are you going to let me finish? Okay.
See, you take pauses and then I think you're done talking.
Well, you should have learned my cadence by now, but never mind. Okay, so the bottom line is it's a metaphor for a group of people that live within a certain area. And those group of people within a certain area say, hey, we're going to call ourselves the state of Michigan. And in this state of Michigan, we're going to elect people to pass laws that we want. And so from that standpoint, when you break one of these laws that the people were elected to have passed, then the people of that state expect that law to be enforced. So
okay.
It's not so much that it's a fictitious entity, other than a football team is a fictitious entity. It's actually just a group of men running around on a field, but we call it a football team. You get it?
Well,
you get that analogy? You get that analogy?
I did get that analogy. So let me ask you a question stemming from what you just said. Okay, so let's say in this fictitious entity that we call Michigan, 51% of the people say we want to make it a law that somebody has to wear a mask.
Okay.
Is that now a law that everybody has to follow?
Yes, that's correct.
So if 51% of the population says yes, mask up, you're saying that that's a real law?
I'm saying that's a law that can be enforced by the people of Michigan that have decided that's the law for them. Yeah. If you don't like it, you have a couple of choices. You can either vote them out of office or try to lobby and change people's minds and get rid of the law, or you can vote with your feet and move somewhere else that they don't have that law.
Is it too much to place a guillotine at outside their home addresses?
Well, I don't know. Give it a shot and see.
Well, I'm just wondering. I mean, if we could just place a guillotine outside these public servants' homes, maybe, just maybe, they'll go, oh, shit, like we're acting way beyond our authority.
Well, try it and report back to us. See how it goes.
See how it goes? I mean, well, I wouldn't place a guillotine outside their house. I would place a meat slicer, one of those watermelon slicer things. I would place a watermelon slicer outside of their house to suggest to them that, fruit is very nutritious and it's an essential part of a balanced diet.
Well, why don't you do that and then report back to us, see how it goes?
Do you think it might get to that level?
I don't know. Like I say, maybe it'll work. Why don't you try it?
Okay, so now going back to the mask mandate thing, right? What if the cops don't enforce it? Is it really a law?
It's still a law. It's just one they don't enforce.
Okay, so do you think they'll ever not enforce murder?
I don't know. Some people think they do, but or they don't. But I don't know whether they would or not.
What about rape? Would the RAPE word, would they allow rape?
I don't think they would, but here again, we're dealing with humans. Humans are unpredictable.
Right. Now, if you stole something right in the presence of a police officer, would they just let that go?
They could. And just say, they could and say, don't ever do it again. I hope you've learned your lesson.
Well, where I'm going with all this, and people hit the nail right on the head, is that, there's acts of civil disobedience out there. And
sure.
Okay, for example, I don't know, did you see the cop watches that I had posted in the live chat? I did that for folks that were kind of early birds that wanted to see some cop watching and didn't want to hear some boring jurisdiction speech by me. But
no.
In one of those videos, I asked the cop if he was going to enforce the mask mandates. And you know what he said?
We're back to questions.
Yeah, he said no. He's not going to enforce the mask mandates, and they didn't enforce them the first time.
Well, there you go. His discretion. Cops have that discretion all the time. I've been let go from speeding tickets and things like that with just a warning. Don't do it again.
Did you ever think to ask him if there's any factual evidence that a private civilian has any obligation to follow the written instrument called traffic code?
No, because I'm well educated.
Okay, so you have to be well educated to not ask that question?
Evidently.
Evidently. I'm going to place the link to the chat if anybody else wants to come up. But for anybody that's just joining us, we're talking to Mr. Juan Galt. We were talking about jurisdiction, and we were talking, if you guys want to rewind to the beginning of the stream, I played a few clips where a judge called me crazy for discussing an issue that another judge, quote unquote judge, was more than happy to discuss for what a good part. That old Squishy Gardner video was what, like a half hour, maybe 35 minutes long?
The one I did?
Well, the one off old Squishy Gardner. You did a condensed version of that video.
Yeah, it's I didn't get it from him, but yeah, the original is like over 40 minutes long.
Yeah, so for 40 minutes, this judge explained to a crazy person what jurisdiction is.
You talk about the most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more like 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes, but because I put all of his stuff in there.
Mr. Galt, is this true? Would you have wanted Rosa Parks put behind bars?
Not at all.
Why?
Well, because I don't believe in segregation by race. I don't believe in that.
Okay, so you would not have wanted Rosa Parks to be put behind bars.
Well, I'll tell you, but her situation was important because she was harmed and she was damaged, and she did bring a lot of attention to what was going on. And so from that standpoint, yeah, it was good that she was arrested because she did what she wanted to do, and that was to commit the change of segregation. So it's kind of a different deal, but no, I don't know why people think I'm a fucking constitutional law attorney and I've sued the government as my practice for violating people's rights.
So let me ask you this then. Okay, so if Rosa Parks drew a bunch of attention, well, first I have to thank you for helping draw attention to this jurisdiction issue, because the number one thing I know about these courts is that they love when you draw attention to the lack of jurisdiction issue. They love it. There's nothing that they like better than folks that come in and question the legitimacy of the charges that are before them. So for that, I'd like to thank you for drawing attention to this issue, because if we can get more and more folks drawing attention to this issue, we might be able to stop these fraudulent charges and then stick to legitimate charges that involve victims.
Well, good luck with that.
We have a guest in the house. Let's see who we got. We got people in the house, Mr. Galt.
Yeah,
we're adding people to the stream.
Yeah.
What is going on?
There's so much to unpack here.
I think so too. I think we've had another productive conversation, and I think we've got a lot to unpack in this. What were some of your observations?
Well, I'd like to start by acknowledging Mr. Galt's acknowledgement that you're a political activist now.
Yes, I would like to thank him for that as well, because that is really the little engine that couldn't is gonna be so mad when he hears that.
So mad. His choo-choo is going to go cut you all over the place. For sure.
My God.
But I wanted to focus in a little bit more on Mr. Galt's metaphor, comparing the a football team as being a fictional entity, and the state of Michigan being a fictional entity, right? And
So yeah, because the cops dress up in costumes, and the prosecutors dress up in suits, and the judges dress up in costumes. So that fictitious football team is trying to put me behind real bars.
Right. And that's the straw man that's used, and it's the same argument where the cops say, oh, if we go to your house with cameras, would you like that very much, in a response to, going to the government business, right? It's comparing apples to oranges, basically, because the football team, is created, but they don't have authority over anyone else. And they're not trying to claim authority over anyone else. And they're not trying to draft anyone onto their team without their consent, right? It's only the team itself that everybody volunteers to be on the team and agrees to consent to those rules, that has to follow those rules. And if they don't follow those rules, then the most that can happen to them is they get kicked off the team.
That's a very, very good observation. That's a very, very astute observation.
Right. So
actually, it's an illegal. Actually, it's illogical, because I wasn't comparing them as two political entities. I was comparing them as the fictional of fiction that's made up of real people. That's the point. And you're taking it way beyond the point of the metaphor, sir.
No, because it's not the same at all, because the inherent question that Broken System, Broken Trust is trying to get to through all these conversations that he's had with you, Mr. Galt, is where does the state or the football team, in your metaphor, get the authority to tell somebody that didn't consent to be in the state or the football team what to do?
Right.
Well, that's because they're two different type of entities.
But we're
talking. Okay, the authority for the state comes from politics. It's a political issue. It's not a legal issue. The authority comes from all the people, the 51%, if that's what you want to call it, the will of the 51% of the people who voted for that particular law, for traffic laws, let's say, for instance. That's where the jurisdiction comes from. Comes from the people giving up their right as an individual to stop somebody from doing something or breaking a law or whatever. They all collectively gave up their little bit of power up to this political entity to do that sort of stuff for them, which is completely opposite of a football team, which is there for just entertainment.
Okay, so a question for you, Mr. Galt. Hold on just a second. A quick question for Mr. Galt. So if I'm a political activist, as you claimed, wouldn't you say it's my duty to draw attention to these issues?
Well, I think the issues you try to draw to are completely different than political activism. But if that's what you think, if that's going to be your thing, and when I say political activist, you want certain laws changed. Well, the only way you can change certain laws is politically, because you have to get the legislature to either repeal the law or to pass a law that overturns it.
See, you keep saying that, right? And that's not true, right? Because there's a third option. It's called civil disobedience.
Well, no, the civil disobedience is a political act. I get that. But I'm just saying that you won't get a law turned over just by being disobedient civilly. You'll draw attention to it. You'll get thrown in jail, perhaps. But if you get a groundswell of the people saying, by God, he's right, that was wrong, and they start lobbying their legislatures saying, hey, get rid of this law. We saw what happened here, and that's just wrong. We will not tolerate it.
Well,
but that hasn't happened, has it? On this issue,
also clogs up the system, grinds up the gears, and makes it difficult to actually carry out the punishments.
No, that's a fallacy that a lot of people operate on. You're thinking that you're going to clog the system, you're going to do this, no, they don't give a fuck. That's their job. They just go to their job and they do it every day. It's
What,
not
you
going to
think
change.
prosecutors have unlimited budgets?
Fuck no, they're a political entity.
Yeah, do you think that they have?
their
Do you think that they have 10 court appearances for everybody accused of driving without a license?
It doesn't matter to them at all. It does
Sure, it
not
does.
matter.
You think they have the time to go to 10 court appearances for everybody accused of driving without a license? Are you kidding?
Yeah, and then make motion after motion after motion because sometimes I just don't even bother to show up.
They don't even care. They don't. That's part of their job. You don't get it. That's just part of their job.
It is part of their job. They might not care, but the budget can only support so much time. They only have so many prosecutors. There's only so many hours in a day.
Well, like I said, they're going to be there whether you're there 1 time, 10 times. It doesn't matter. That's the way they make a living.
Yeah, that's the way they make a living. They might not personally care, but the system can only support so much enforcement.
Well, that's your opinion, but
What do you
like
mean?
I say,
The government
not an
makes a
opinion,
law
it's-
like no jaywalking. They know damn well they can't enforce no jaywalking on everybody. It's impossible. There's too many cases of it.
well, if it's your position that this is somehow going to change the law, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. It's a fool's errand, but you're entitled to pursue it.
I never said it was going to change the law, but the law is what is reality, right? And just because the government passes a law doesn't make it a law. It doesn't make it true all of a sudden.
How so?
Because it just doesn't make it true.
How so? That's circular reasoning. Give me the
No,
reason
because
why.
just because they say something's illegal in that this is this proposed punishment for it doesn't mean that it goes and gets enforced.
Well, but it does mean it can be enforced, right?
Well, with discretion, right? Which is really cops only enforcing it when you hurt their feelings. They don't enforce it unless you hurt their feelings, and then they use that.
Oh, and I hurt their feelings really bad, and then they enforce something that is not really enforceable.
Yeah, I mean, Josh was driving without a license. Yes, okay, that's there's a code against that, right? You could say he violated a law, but that cop never would have known or stopped him if it wasn't that he was filming. And that's not an excuse in a court of law. I understand that, but in reality, in the real world, in the court of public opinion, we all know that the only reason that he got that ticket was because he was filming the police.
And you're entitled to that opinion.
Right. And those kinds of things build up on society, right? And they start asking questions. And you say that you spent your whole life going after the government, but yet your whole YouTube channel seems to be devoted to criticizing anyone that questions the government.
And protecting what the government does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. It's just like low-hanging fruit. Like, even if you don't agree with Josh, I don't understand why you're picking that as something to use your Yale education for.
I use that to inform others. That's my whole purpose, is to show the reality of the legal system as opposed to what some people think it is.
Well, I don't think Josh ever said, "Oh, this is how you get out of a court ticket." I don't think he's ever said like, "Oh, somebody should do this." You know,
No,
I
as a
think
matter
he
of
knows
fact,
quite
I've
clearly,
said the opposite.
in fact,
I've
I
actually
know,
said that folks should just pay their ticket and just not go through what I went through. I actually tell people the opposite, or tell folks the opposite, unless they're willing to do what I'm willing to do, and that is go to jail and frustrate the process so much that you might affect some change somewhere down the road.
Well, I mean, if that's what you believe in the back of your mind that you think you're accomplishing, more power to you. I say it's a fool's errand, but that's your choice to make.
Right,
but
but
you don't
going
just
back
say
to
it's a fool's errand, Juan Galt. You go out of your way to berate Josh, right, for merely asking questions, which is his right.
Well, if I didn't call him crazy, a judge told him he was talking crazy. I've never said that. I've just said, you're going about it, or your thought process on this is incorrect, because here's the reality of it. In regards to, let's say, jurisdiction, you think that they have to prove jurisdiction to you by presenting something you call factual evidence. I'm saying that the court doesn't have to prove jurisdiction to you at all under any circumstance. If you think the court lacks jurisdiction, it's up to you to prove to them they don't.
I've never heard him say that.
Because
I've never heard him say that, Juan. I've never heard him say that. I only hear him asking.
Right, and that's what I do.
You're changing it,
and I'm showing how that is crazy talk.
But he's never said that the court has to provide him with jurisdiction.
No, he keeps asking. He keeps asking for factual evidence of jurisdiction. He's asking the court to produce something.
More specifically, I'm asking what the prosecutor filed. What did the prosecutor use to file and establish factual evidence of jurisdiction? I'm asking what the prosecutor passed, so that we can throw that criminal fraudulent prosecutor under the bus.
And they always and generally they will come back and say it's on the ticket. It's on the charging instrument that he provided. It's the thing that you receive.
And then he's supposed to do mental gymnastics to try and figure out what it is.
He's right.
Supposed to guess, and he's supposed to make the case for the prosecutors.
No, if he's going to play lawyer, he's going up.
I'm not playing. I'm playing dumb. I'm playing dumb guy that doesn't get it.
Okay, well, if he's playing dumb guy that doesn't get it, that's no reflection on the prosecutor. If the prosecutor has presented the evidence of jurisdiction, the prima facie evidence of jurisdiction, and Josh doesn't get it, nobody has to prove it to him. That's Josh's problem.
Okay, now the ultimate question here, Mr. Galt. The ultimate question is: Did you email or communicate with that judge in that video? Did you actually write down what he should say on the record?
No.
Are you sure you didn't reach out and contact that guy?
Why would I do that? I didn't even
know. Because all of you legal professionals should be on the same page when it comes to talking about factual evidence of jurisdiction. The fact that you're not all on the same page leads me to question it.
Well, that's because your question about factual evidence of jurisdiction is malformed. That's why, because nobody knows what the fuck you're saying. I do, because I know you. These other people don't know you.
Well, you do because you know me. But my point is, these legal professionals shouldn't be taken by surprise. It should be, okay, this is the one consistent answer that we all provide. And the fact that they don't do that leads me to question it even more. And if anybody in this...
That's your problem you're not facing. When you say, can I
you just cut me off.
Can I see factual evidence of jurisdiction?
And yeah, but you just cut me off, and you did what you were bitching at me about earlier when I accidentally cut you off.
I apologize, Josh. Please continue.
It's okay. We're not going to hold you in contempt yet, Mr. Galt. You have one warning, and you just used up your warning on your contempt charge. But what I was trying to say, what I was trying to finish and say is, if all of you legal professionals had the same response every time, but the fact that I get a different response from Artie, from Paul Carroll, from Juan Galt, from Paulette Michelle Lofton, from
AZ Jeep
Melissa,
girl.
the public defender that I had in my disorderly case. The three
And AZ
attorneys
Jeep
down.
girl.
What's that?
An AZ Jeep girl.
Oh, AZ Jeep girl. Yeah, another legal professional. So depending on who you ask, you get this wide variety of answers. And the strangest thing about the military court, which is the example I come back to, is you get one answer every time you ask for factual evidence of jurisdiction. You get one consistent answer, no explanation needed. It's in paper. It has your signature, has your consent, and it's right there as the example.
But you're not in a military court, so it's irrelevant. It's illogical.
It's not irrelevant, Juan, because if the military court needs that jurisdiction, right, and you're saying that the civil court doesn't need it, then why does the military court even need it at all?
Right, because that's a huge problem. If you're saying that the state courts don't need it, but military courts do need it, then that's showing a huge problem.
No, all the state courts need to begin, to start with, is prima facie evidence of jurisdiction. That's all.
That's a belief.
And no, that's a fact.
Well, Sandra the orangutan might say that prima facie evidence is a fact, but I know it's a belief.
Well, it's not. It's a fact.
It's not a fact.
We're going to end this.
What about
a
diplomat? What about an ambassador, Juan?
Exactly.
Like,
what about a diplomat? Perfect question. Perfect logical question.
Are you a diplomat?
No, but you said
I didn't ask if I was a diplomat.
Evidence, and that's not true.
Right. Did you understand the question, Mr. Galt? Because nobody claimed to be a diplomat. Nobody claimed that. The question was, is a diplomat subject to that?
Subject to what?
Prima facie jurisdiction.
No, is a diplomat subject to prima facie evidence? Yes.
No.
Okay, so then it doesn't apply to all people within that geographic area. We know that that's a lie now.
No, I just said, yeah, it applies to a diplomat as well.
No,
now, it may be dismissed, but it can apply. Prima facie is a very, 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 very low burden to meet. That's what you don't understand.
Yeah, we understand that it's a very low burden to meet. We get that.
But how do they meet that burden?
No, but not only how do they meet the burden, but also who decided the burden?
Right. Who decided it was a very low burden to meet?
The rules of legal procedure. There's rules
and who had the authority to make those rules?
The people charged. Okay, the people charged with that authority.
But what gives the majority the power to decide for the minority?
The power.
The physical power.
Right. The political power. Yeah. The physical.
Right. So the scariest thing I think anybody at this point could hear, the scariest thing is that no matter what silly law might be passed, force is going to be brought upon you to enforce it. That should be so scary to every pair of ears that hear this message or hear this live stream from here, or if you cut this up and you play it on your channel, which I would hope you would do, then you can ask your audience, is that really the world? Do you think that's legitimate authority is what I would say. When the majority of folks can determine for you what they want you to do and then give your government unbridled access to violence to enforce it, is that the world you want to live?
Well, evidently it's the world that the people in the U.S. want to live under.
Well, how about if those people want to live under dictatorships, they can move to a dictatorship. And we'll stay here in this country. I'll stay here in this country, I should say. I'll only speak for me. I'll stay in this country where, do you remember when it says, "and liberty and justice for all"? In the Pledge of Allegiance, they have that little line in there, liberty and justice for all?
Yep.
Okay, so if you have to be licensed, regulated, taxed, registered, are you really, is that liberty for all?
Well, if everybody's treated equally under that law, yeah, that would be justice and liberty for all.
Did we really just disconnect that much just off of that little logical trail? That, I mean, I realize I went out kind of on a tangent by bringing up the Pledge of Allegiance, but did we really wander so far off the track that you can't make the connection between liberty and what people are supposed to have and what folks are supposed to have in this country versus what we actually have? Like, is there that big of a disconnect?
Well, you're talking your political philosophy. It's your philosophy that you don't like the way this country's set up with 51% majority rule type thing. Well, that's
I want the fuckers that don't believe in liberty. They can go live in their dictatorship.
Well,
why can't they move to a dictatorship if they love it so much?
Well, because you're outnumbered. They're not going to move. We're going to either have to fight them like they did in the 1860s, or we're going to have to fight them politically. Ballot or bullet's going to be the way to do it. That's the only way you get political change.
The only way?
Yep. The only two ways in human history that political change has been conducted is that either
slice up a couple watermelons outside of the public servants' houses, and then, you know, they might get that the picnic is for real.
Well, do that, Josh, and report back to us.
Well, how about if I just recruit Juan Galt to do it, since Juan Galt fights the government, Juan Galt has sued his government, and Juan Galt believes that tyrannical overreach needs to be dealt with.
And that's what he's done.
Except when you're asking questions of judges, then you can't do that.
Of course, there is no crime worse than questioning a judge with factual, simple, logical questions. There is nothing worse. There is no higher crime than that. I understand that there's folks out there that will forgive a murderer before they'll forgive somebody for questioning a little judgy poo.
I got to interrupt real quick, Josh, because Juan Galt here, the guy who says that he's all about gun rights, instead of making a video about the New Mexico governor that declared an emergency order that nobody could possess a gun anymore in Albuquerque, he decides to make a video about you instead.
Yes, so true.
Yeah, because you are what's really tearing this country apart.
Mr. Galt, your comment.
I have taken on that issue in different platforms in great detail. I was asked about that the minute she passed that law. And
what other platforms?
Discord, for instance.
So you've taken to Discord, but you haven't taken the time to make like a 20-minute video out of her nonsense.
That's correct. Because that's not what my subscribers and viewers request of me.
They want to see a guy that asks a judge simple logical questions. They want to see you grill him and say how stupid he is when you secretly will come over here and admit that the judges make the mistakes and then pretend like I'm the one that shouldn't be confused, right?
Well, you're easy to confuse because you have a hard time grasping certain concepts, John.
I understand this. So then help me like I'm like a dummy special ed kid riding the short bus. Like, why do I get such a wide variety of answers to the jurisdiction question? You know, see, when you can start answering those simple logical questions, I'll start believing more of what you tell me, Mr. Galt. In regards to jurisdiction.
Well, here again, as I told you last time, there's 3 separate jurisdictions, and you try to mix them up. But the thing about it is, the majority of when you've asked about those questions has been said that it's on the ticket.
Right. And then I ask a poll of attorneys, and then 70% of them say no, it's not on the ticket.
Well, I don't think that's true because you haven't asked that particular question. Your question should be, what proves jurisdiction to a court?
That's a valid question. Now, I want to test your listening skills right now, Mr. Galt. I want to test your listening skills because somebody posed a question and it's asked of me repeatedly, and I always answer this consistently the same way. BSBT, what changes do you want to see? Mr. Galt, how have I answered that every single time in the past? Let's test your listening skills right now.
I have no idea, Josh. It's hard for me to stay up with what goes through your mind. Why don't you instead of trying to test me, why don't you just talk and then I'll respond?
Because of all the times we've communicated, I understand the one key, the communication, but I don't think you know about the other key, which is listening. So if you're not listening to me, what's the point of us communicating?
Well, I listen to you when you're talking directly to me. I may not listen to every one of your videos and what you've said. So,
okay, well, let me answer
I'm dealing with the here and now. You've got me live right here.
Okay, well, let me answer this question here and now for Richard Fulmer. I don't know what changes that I want to see. I don't have the answers to any of these questions. All I know is that you have to accurately diagnose the problem. And a problem that we have in this country is that there's illegitimate charges brought against folks disguised as crimes, and they've been turned into monetary gain for the public servants that are involved, and they've hijacked the legal system at this point and installed a bunch of fraudulent charges. So if we can put the focus there and then maybe shed some light that these need to go away so that the police can stick to real crimes like rape and assault and theft and robbery, and then the red rum word, I know that would maybe be a good start. So I've answered this question 100 times, and again, I don't have the answers other than accurately diagnosing the problem is where you start.
And your your philosophy is you use the words illegitimate charges. Well, that's your opinion. You use the word fraud. That's your opinion. So, that has no bearing on anything, but it's just Josh's opinion that things are illegitimate and fraudulent.
Okay, but you understand I don't have the answer to these questions. Like, I don't pretend to have the answer. Have you ever known me to pretend to have the answer, Mr. Galt?
No, don't know that.
Right. So if I don't pretend to have the answer, when folks ask me that again and again and again, now the next time we have a discussion, you might be able to answer that for somebody, or maybe in your own comment section that I never claim to have the answers, or I should say I try to never claim to have the answers because I legitimately don't.
Well,
except
I think
for the fact that you have to accurately diagnose the problem first. That's the only thing I'll claim to know.
Well, I think the fact that you don't have the answers is self-evident, and everybody who ever has listened to you knows that.
So why do they get so mad when I question things?
I have no idea.
What would you have to what would you guess?
Well, you get all mad, Juan.
I don't get mad.
Oh yeah, you get triggered like crazy, Mr. Galt.
You've never seen me mad.
Your panties get all in a bunch.
No, they don't.
I would say up here you've been triggered at least 10 times on this one panel alone. Is your heart rate up right now?
No, your videos show your panties getting bunched.
No, they don't.
That you make that video.
See,
in
that's
the first
just
place, that you
that's
focus
just
on
your
a
opinion
BSBT.
of.
No, the fact that you focus on a BSBT, that you focus on something like that, shows that you care about it, right? That it's bothering you.
Well, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, it does. No, it doesn't. How could it fucking bother me? What effect does anything Josh does, or any soft sit or 1A otter? What do they do that would bother me or affect my life and pursuit of happiness at all? None. It has no effect on me.
So then why do you make the videos then?
Because I enjoy making them. I enjoy teaching people how law works, how legal procedure works, how court decisions work. I love doing that.
Well, I don't think anybody is under some illusion that going into a court like Josh does is going to get you a quick in and out appearance and everything's going to be all gravy and everybody's going to love you. He's clearly trying to stall and grind the gears of justice to a halt and waste their time and their money and make a point,
And
right?
apparently I'm going to get an escort on my next court date. I'm going to have a cop that escorts me around. Like, that's not the scariest thing somebody could ever, threaten you with.
Bless your heart.
Would you want to come with me,
Well, why
Mr. Galt?
are
You could
against
record
that?
it.
Why are you against that one? I don't get that. Like, I mean, he's standing up against a tyrannical government in whatever
Without,
way he knows how.
yeah, without a legal leg to stand on.
Well, he does have a legal leg to stand on. He's asking questions, and you may not like the questions. The judge clearly doesn't like the questions, but he has a right to ask them. It's not a crime. He hasn't been charged with a crime of asking questions, has he?
Nobody said it was a crime, have they?
But you're saying he doesn't have a legal standpoint when, in fact, everything that he's done is legal.
Well, no, he doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, I said. In other words, a legal theory, something foundational in the law to stand on. If he did, he could come up and say, okay, Judge, you lack jurisdiction because of this, and this, says it.
Well,
But then
that's
I would
proof that they don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah, you can't, and you can't prove a negative anyways, Mr. Galt. So it's not like I can't
Yes,
prove
you
that you
can.
didn't do something.
Yes, you can. You can prove, people prove a lack of jurisdiction all the time.
No, what I'm saying is I can't prove that they don't have jurisdiction, though. It's up to them to prove that they do have it.
No, who says it's up to them to prove it?
Every single legal professional I've ever talked to.
And who do they have to prove it to? I've asked you.
Well,
this
you
question.
just said that they have to use a traffic ticket. You just said that they have to use a traffic ticket to establish prima facie evidence as a charging instrument to establish a rebuttable presumption of jurisdiction.
That's right. And who do they have to prove it to? Who? Just a second. You do not. You have yet to answer this question. Who does that prima facie evidence have to be proven to?
That sounds like legalese gobbledygook to me. I could recite everything else you told me. So, but see, you said you don't get triggered, but you just got triggered just now.
No, I'm not triggered. I'm emphatic, asking you, who do they have to prove jurisdiction to? Who is that prima facie evidence presented to prove jurisdiction? Who makes the final decision on the evidence before them that jurisdiction exists? Who?
Well, what if soon it's going to be the court of public opinion? The court of public opinion starts questioning it to the point where they're like, "Oh shit, maybe there's something here."
When it comes to the
before
that
happens,
the people decide. The people decide whether or not a judge has jurisdiction over them.
Right. Prove it. Prove that.
I don't
Show me
have
that.
to prove it.
Well, yeah, okay, there you go.
No, because I know it. I only have to prove it to myself.
That which
I know
can
the
be
judge
claimed
doesn't have
without
jurisdiction
evidence
over
can
me.
be dismissed without evidence.
No, it's never been dismissed.
Because you can't answer the question. Right now, today, who does jurisdiction have to be proven to? You
The
say
judge.
it must be proven. That's right, the judge.
Right, but
That's
if the
all.
people are the judge, then the people are the judge. The judge isn't always the one sitting in the robe.
Well, but in Michigan courthouse, that's who is the judge, is the one
Well,
sitting in the robe.
until you maybe have a public uprising. Maybe you went from 1917 Russia to 1918 Russia, and they said those old ways are done for.
That was illogical.
Well, okay, let me
Not
just
illogical, Juan, because governments fall. They all fall.
And my point was, it depends on what point in time you're at, that you would have the Prussian Empire or you would have Nazi Germany. It depends on what point in time that you're in to establish the jurisdiction.
Well, let me
so
ask you.
Jurisdiction changes with time, correct?
Let me ask you a question. Let's bring it to the country we live in. There was a time in the 1860s where half of the country said, "Fuck you, we don't want to be under your jurisdiction anymore. We denounce your jurisdiction. We're going to be our own country." Did that work? Wasn't there a big civil war? And didn't it prove that those people did not have the jurisdiction and the power they thought they did because they were defeated?
Right. So one day the jurisdiction just magically vanished. Which was my point to the whole, or it depends on what point in time you're at for a jurisdiction to be, factual and evident.
Well, it was factually evident because they didn't. Jurisdiction didn't disappear because the North still had the jurisdiction to overtake the South.
The physical court.
Yeah, let me come back to this comment real quick by Richard Fulmer before we wander down those paths. But Richard Fulmer said, I would say any lawyer or judge BSBT walks into is going to be angry because they just tell you you're stupid and guilty. I would agree with that comment, and I would say that's one of the number one reasons I do what I do is because we all know that you're supposed to be presumed innocent, but we all know that you're treated the opposite. And that's a big observation right there by Richard Fulmer, who knows that judge is automatically looking at you like you're guilty.
Well, I'm glad Richard can read people's minds. He's one in a million.
But I don't think he's reading somebody's mind. He's just making an observation that's obvious to somebody that's not brain dead and clueless.
Well, like I said, that goes to the operation of the judge's mind. He's telling us what the judge thinks. So,
So how do we get back to presumed innocent until proven guilty? How do we start treating innocent people as if they're innocent until they're proven guilty? How do we do that?
Well, it's real easy. The minute they're show up in court, first of all, you just stick them in a cage and you don't ever let them go to court. There you go. How's that? But that's not what happens.
That's what they did.
There's two.
Yeah, that's what they did to people.
There's two rebuttable presumptions at the start of a case, for instance. There's the rebuttable presumption of the prima facie evidence of jurisdiction and guilt, and there's the rebuttable presumption of innocence. Both of those things have to be addressed and rebutted. So you're all stuck on this presumption of innocence. Yeah, I agree. But you miss the presumption of prima facie evidence.
Okay, so how can we be so close together at the foundation of things where you're supposed to be presumed innocent until proven guilty?
Wait. Juan just did it again. Okay, the government agreed to follow the rules that you're innocent until proven guilty. Okay?
Right.
The accused did not agree to follow the rules of prima facie evidence.
They don't have to agree.
That's where you can't seem to understand. You keep trying to conflate the two and say that, you want presumption of innocence, but you don't want prima facie evidence. Well, the government agreed, the judge agreed, the prosecutor agreed to those rules, and they don't follow those rules. But they expect the accused to follow rules that they never agreed to.
Well, first of all, agreement is irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant.
Well, it is, but anyway.
You can only govern with consent.
That's a collective consent, not an individual consent.
That's actually a very valid point. That's an extremely valid point.
1 to 2%
No, it's not.
of the population to overthrow a government. Okay, so don't act like it takes 51%. 1 to 2% is plenty.
Well, and they tried that 50% of it, almost tried it back in the 1860s, tried to overthrow a government. And there wasn't enough of them either. So,
well, they overthrew a government.
No, they didn't. They just seceded from a government, but were overthrown in their secession.
Well, they overthrew it for about 4 years.
They didn't overthrow it. If they'd overthrown it, they wouldn't have lasted 4 years.
No, I mean, they were successful for about 4 years. They weren't following the Northern's rules.
No, but they were following the North's bullets and artillery and everything else.
Right. But still, they did overthrow a government.
No, they didn't overthrow it. If they
Yes,
overthrew
they
it, they
did.
would have. If they overthrew it, it wouldn't. The government wouldn't have succeeded. They
No,
attempted. They attempted to overthrow the government. There's a difference.
no, they
They.
did overthrow it, and then 4 years later, that government came back and overthrew the new one.
Yeah,
No,
I
they.
mean, they actually split. They actually did split into two territories. And then Lincoln couldn't be the president that was known as losing half of his territory, so he went to war over it. And he's supposed to be a peaceable, honest guy.
But
Are we gonna relitigate the
coups
Civil
fail
War?
and some are successful. The point is not whether or not it's successful or it is successful, but how much of the population it takes to actually do it, right? And it depends on the size of the government, right? I mean, obviously, the government that existed in 1776 over on a little island dropping crumbs of biscuits on the floor isn't the same as the government that we have now, right? And to overthrow this government would be much harder than it was in 1776 to overthrow the king in this country, right?
Yeah,
But
Mr. Galt, would you say that this that the government we have right now is too big?
Yeah, and I'm on record saying that.
yeah, but 3.5 million people—that'd be 1% of the population of the United States. That's a pretty sizable army.
Yeah, it is.
And that's only
especially think of
1%.
That's a huge army.
Yeah, think of the 6 million that have flooded over our border in the last couple of years. That's a big army too.
That could be a big army, but what I'm saying is that you're talking about 51% consent. It doesn't take 51% to overthrow.
Well, all I can say is in the past, over 150 years, there's never been a second attempt at it. So evidently either the majority of people are pacified and they're okay with it, or the ones that aren't okay with it haven't reached their boiling point yet.
That's not true. There was an insurrection in the United States that went through.
Where was that?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the state. I think it was Alabama, but it might have been Tennessee. And it was after World War II, and the veterans came home and found out that government was all corrupt. And there was a sheriff in a small town who had been rigging the vote for a while. And the veterans came back and they formed their own party. And then the sheriff took the polling boxes and tried to rig the vote, and the veterans took up arms, surrounded the sheriff's station, held him at gunpoint, threw Molotov cocktails, burned the police cars, kicked all of the sheriffs out of town, and took over the government. Fact.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but it did happen.
Yeah, and I just wanted to address a couple comments that came up that I really wanted to touch on real quick. You know, Michelle also made the comment, I put it up on the screen, that our government is gigantic today. And then I also wanted to point out we got LA Spike in the house. We got John Eagle in here. What's up, John Eagle? Thank you for checking us out. Cops have duties. Angelica Smith or Smythe, whichever one, even though you're here trolling, thank you for the comments. But going back to what Michelle said, that the government is gigantic. So wouldn't that put most of us on the same team if we felt that way?
I would think so. Yeah. Like I've said, and I'm on record saying it, I think the federal government is 95% too big. We should get rid of about 95% of it. They should be for national defense, some kind of court system, and international relations, protect our borders. The only taxes they can get are duties, exports, and tariffs, and leave us the fuck alone. And everything else should be at the state level.
See, yeah, now but we all can agree on that, can't we?
Yeah. And what about decreasing the level, like the state level government as well? How about we just limit both sizes of government, the state level and the federal level, so we don't become a police state?
I have no problem with that either.
Would you be happier with police if they were out there enforcing crimes with victims versus nonviolent victimless crimes?
I'm okay with both. Now, some victimless crimes I do have a problem with, and
Which one?
I probably am guilty of breaking some of those in my lifetime. But yeah, there's a lot of victimless crimes that I'm not okay with.
Give me one or two examples.
Prostitution.
Knocking a camera out of an auditor's hand.
Well, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Galt. You go ahead and answer. That was just perfect timing. Sorry, Mr. Galt. What are one or two of the crimes you would do away with?
Prostitution and drug crimes.
Well, yeah, of course they have to do away with prostitution. How else would Angelica Smythe make a living?
He went straight to the prostitution. Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I mean, consensual. Yeah, consensual transactions. If some girl wants to give it up for a little bit of coin, like, more power to her for having that magic thing between her legs.
Of course, that's commerce. And Juan didn't read those 3 words in the Constitution. Commerce shall be regulated.
No, interstate commerce shall be regulated.
Shall be regulated.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we all know the meaning of shall is ambiguous in legal terminology anyway.
Well,
the word must is the strongest of the 4 options of will, shall, may, and must, which if you didn't notice when I gave you your summons to appear today, notice how I said failure to appear may subject you to contempt of court and failure to appear may a bench warrant may be issued for your arrest.
Well, I will tell you this: when they wrote the Constitution, shall was mandatory.
Yeah, but if I say I shall go to the store tomorrow, is that obligatory or is that optional?
Here again, we were talking about the Constitution and the words in the Constitution. Why do you always bring in these red herrings? And let's say, look at the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law. So that means Congress may make some laws, you know?
And they might not, right. It's ambiguous.
No,
it's
not
terminology that's not clear.
Not in the writing of the Constitution. You have to go back and you have to read all the debates of the Constitution and then the words they chose to use and their meanings. And I'm quite positive you have not done that. I have.
Well, the way that's worded is a double negative or something. It's not right to word a sentence in that way. Shall make no laws.
Must make no laws with respecting religion, freedom of the press, free speech.
I mean, it should have been worded more of like Congress is forbidden from making any law.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you what you do, peoples. Read.
I'm just saying grammar-wise.
Okay.
Grammar-wise,
I'm going to help
you. Don't say what somebody can do followed by something they can't do.
I'm going to help. So I'm going to help you out.
Shall make is an action. Doing so, and then no laws. You can't make no laws. It's not possible to make something that doesn't exist. The non-existence of it.
Well, just read the preamble to the Bill of Rights, and it explains what that means, and you'll get it.
The preamble doesn't say anything about shall.
No, it tells you what the purpose of the preamble lays out. What the purpose about what you're about to read.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the grammar of the sentence. Congress shall make no laws. Right, that's it's just not proper grammar.
Well, it was for back then.
It might have been, but
and it was.
I mean, still, even now, it's not like. I mean, peeps say things like that, but it's not really correct. Because you're
Yeah,
saying
and then
shall
let
make.
me point out.
Right?
Let
That's
me point out. Hold on. AZ Unfiltered said something good too. Meanings have changed. For instance, well-regulated militia used to mean a trained individual not governed.
Well, the history of the militia was any able-bodied male 15 years and older possessing a firearm and the ammunition for the firearm and expertise in using both. That was basically the definition of militia. So we're all in a militia. Every male that's in the United States is part of the militia.
Well, just like any individual has the right to press, correct? Is the right to press supposed to be an individual right, or is it supposed to belong only to newspapers and periodicals?
Well, when it was written, that's all it applied to, because the word press came from the printing press, and that's the way.
Right, but nowadays with so many, right. So nowadays with so many different social media sources and ways to drive information to the general public, would you say a YouTube platform is now considered the press?
I've seen it not considered press, but I would think any.
Well, you know, Brandsburg versus Hayes established even video games were press, right?
No, I didn't read that. I just, like I said, I've read one case where it was established it wasn't press. But you asked me my opinion, so in my opinion, anybody who disseminates information of a public nature that's important to the public, yeah, I think they're the press.
Okay, so you've admitted on this live stream that I am a political activist, and then I have an individual right to press because I have a YouTube channel, correct?
Well, I think some of the things you do for political purposes. At least that's my opinion. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. And so, yeah, you're a political activist in some instances, and you're a part of the press in some instances. You wear two different hats, if you will.
Well, I'm going to clip that part, and I'm going to play it repeatedly for the little engine that couldn't, because the little engine that couldn't seems to repeat over and over in his videos just the exact opposite of what you just said. And then he claims that he speaks the truth and he's always correct.
Well, he's entitled to his opinion, just like I'm entitled to my opinion, and Peoples and you are entitled to your opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinions.
Right.
But Juan Galt just admitted that the little engine that couldn't is a he.
Yeah, and that's true. We should come back to that and just establish that that's not true. But he has a little. I'm not even going to go there. You know what? Let's just save from going down that little pathway right there, off on that tangent. But Mr. Galt, I just wanted to. So you would say the little engine that couldn't. This other YouTuber is expressing an opinion when he says that I am not a political activist, nor am I. Nor do I have the individual right to press. He's stating his opinion, correct?
I would think so, yeah.
Well, if he states it as a fact, wouldn't he sound even crazier?
Well, it's a fact that that's his opinion.
Right, it's a fact that that's his opinion, but he puts it out there and says that that's a fact.
Well, that's his business, not mine.
Yeah, so wouldn't you know that that dude is full of shit right off the get-go?
Well, I'm not going to make that characterization of him. You can.
Oh, well, I will. I'll be more than happy to make that characterization, because anybody in this world that claims that their opinion is fact either has like a little dictator in the back of their head, and they think that everything they say and do is correct, and like they're the type of people and the type of folks that you would never want in power, because they're clearly not capable of thinking rationally.
Hey, welcome to the human race.
Right. So, and wouldn't you agree that if all of society acted normal, wouldn't that be weird if all of society acted normal?
I like the diversity of humans. I like that we're not all the same.
Right. So the fact that these courts, like the court that wants me to show up in person so they can personally escort me with a police officer for my safety, and then they would go on to call me crazy. Wouldn't you kind of agree now that like that world would be a strange world and a weird world if everybody were the same and nobody like me went in to question their bullshit?
Well, I don't know that you're questioning. I don't know that you're questioning bullshit. That's your characterization of it. But I enjoy, like I said, the diversity of people and their thought patterns and their opinions and their ideas and their looks. You know.
Okay, so now Michelle made a very good point right here that everyone has a different opinion, which on its surface, I think we would all agree. And feel free to speak up. I'm not trying to speak for anybody, but I think it's safe to say that we would all agree that everyone is entitled to their different opinion. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, and Michelle said hello to you, Mr. Galt, at the very beginning, and I did put her comment up on the screen, but I don't think you saw it, but she did say hello to you when she first came in. So just to give her the acknowledgement that she should get. But going back to opinions, and everybody has a different opinion. Now, is it very reasonable for somebody to use their opinion to impose their will and to try to say that you have to accept their opinion as fact?
Well, in the way the legal system works, that's just the way it works. I mean, I can have an opinion that, by God, my truck's going to run on water. I'm going to fill up the tank with water. Because in my opinion, it should work. Well, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because my opinion was incorrect. Same holds true when you try to go into like a court of law and use something that has no bearing or no merit in a court of law. It's not going to work. It's going to blow up.
So you're admitting. So you're admitting, Juan, that when BSBT asks all these questions, that the justice system doesn't work that way?
I'm just saying when he asks those questions of a judge, yes, the legal system does not work that way because a judge is not there to answer questions.
So you admit that it doesn't work?
What doesn't work?
He can stop it from working. He could either go along with it and it would work, or he can do what he's doing in the justice system won't work.
Well, the justice system's going to work no matter what he does.
Oh, so it does work that way.
Well, I guess you're losing me here, peoples. I don't know.
Well, it either works that way or it doesn't work that way. And if it doesn't work that way, then it's not working.
What doesn't work what way? Asking the judge questions?
You're the one who said that. You said it doesn't work that way.
Right. Asking
right?
judge.
If it doesn't work that way, then you're admitting it's not working.
Mr. Galt, people has this amazing ability, which is to actually hear the words that come out of your mouth and then actually can communicate them back to you in a way where now maybe you can hear your words for yourself and then you can expand on that. But he has the uncanny ability to listen, which is kind of like the key here that we were missing, which was, we communicate often, but you seem to have trouble listening, Mr. Galt.
Not
to yourself, that is. To yourself.
Not at all. I what I see with Peoples is he comes up with something that I have no idea what he's saying because he takes it off into the weeds. I'm saying, here's my point.
It's not the weeds. You said it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
And if something doesn't work that way, then it's not working. You're admitting it's not working.
Yes.
Right?
Josh's approach of going in and asking the judge for factual evidence of jurisdiction will not work because a judge does not have to answer that question.
But it's worked twice before, and you've admitted. I shared the link to the video where it worked before, and then you said that in Novi they dropped the case nolle prosequi. So how can you say it doesn't work?
Because they didn't say, he's right. We
so
don't
either way you answered that. Either way you answered that, it either doesn't work, and then when we go down that logical trail, it leads to the dead end of you admitting that it doesn't work. And then if you try to come back to, well, it does work. Well, I still have 2 cases that were dismissed, nolle prosequi. So evidently it does work. So either route you go down, you're hitting your dead end, Mr. Galt.
No, I'm not. You're not comprehending.
What didn't I comprehend?
It's very simple. Noli prosequi does not mean that your position was correct.
Well, but we started this. We started off this. You said it doesn't work.
I said that asking the judge questions does not work because the judge doesn't have to answer questions. That's the only point I was making. I don't know what the fuck point Peoples and you are trying to make now.
People, do you want to take over?
I'm still trying to make the point, because if you say that it doesn't work that way, right, no matter what you're doing, if you're trying to make a cup of coffee and you're doing it wrong and somebody says you can't make coffee that way, it doesn't work. That means that you can't make coffee that way. It can't be done, right? But if BSBT is trying to stop a prosecution of himself and he asks questions and the prosecution does stop, then it did in fact work.
Well, that's your opinion. I'm not saying his questions were the reason. You are.
How is that anything other than a fact? How is it an opinion, not a fact, when it's factual?
Well, because it would have been without prejudice, with prejudice instead of without, and it was without.
Have they refiled?
I have no idea.
Well, what difference does it make if it's with prejudice or without prejudice unless they refile?
Well, because they didn't agree. They didn't agree that it was your reasoning that caused it, or they would have done it with prejudice.
Right. So we have to agree. All of a sudden now we have to agree, when before with the jurisdiction thing we didn't have to agree, and I just had to accept that as fact. But now everybody has to agree on that?
No, you don't agree with it. You have your interpretation of what happened. I have my interpretation of what happened.
So we're not talking about facts, we're talking about interpretations now.
Well, we're talking about you are interpreting the nolo prosequi as winning because of your questions you asked.
Well, I said specifically, I said specifically that I don't know the reason, but if I had to guess, and then I took a guess that it was because I challenged jurisdiction and they didn't want to go through all that nonsense. That was my guess, but I didn't say I knew.
Okay, good enough. We don't know.
Okay.
Now we both don't know.
Just to clarify, please continue if you can remember your train of thought there.
No, you've said it. If we both agree that we don't know what happened, then anything we say from this point on would be speculative.
No, but we know some things that happened. We know that the case stopped.
Right.
We know that happened.
Right. So are you gonna clarify for all the folks that make comments on your video that try to say that what I do never works? Are you now gonna clarify to them and say, well, actually I've seen it work 2 times?
I don't believe that that's why the reasoning behind it.
Well,
I don't believe you asking questions caused the noli prosequi or any dismissal. That's my opinion.
But you're not going to. What happened is above your understanding. You can't possibly comprehend it. But something did happen, and what did happen caused the case to stop.
But you can't prove why.
But you don't understand what it was.
Right. I'm not asking you to.
I'm saying you can't prove the reason why it was.
I'm not asking you to tell your audience that, you have to, you have proof of why I got 2 cases to stop. Just stop misleading your audience and saying that you've never seen it work, when clearly I have 2 examples of when when the case was abandoned.
Yeah, you can't prove that it wasn't because of that either, Juan.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I said.
Right, but why don't you
saying it doesn't work?
Right, but why don't you tell your audience that it may not have been successful because of that, but BSBT has actually gotten 2 cases to stop. How come you're willing to mislead your audience?
Well, I'm not misleading them, because here again, mine is an opinion piece based on my experience with court procedure and rules and such as that. And I'm saying my opinion. I realize you keep interrupting me. And so here we're at an impasse. You believe a reason for it happening is this. I'm saying I don't believe that's the reason. And from that
I'm
point,
only asking you to stick to the facts. I'm only asking you to put out the facts. And the facts would be there are 2 cases out there that BSBT got to stop, and we don't know the reason.
That's right. We don't know the reason.
Right. So why don't you say that instead of saying that it's never worked?
Because I don't put out speculation. And I don't believe you'll ever see any of my videos where I say it never works. Maybe I have, because I've never seen it work. And you can't prove that you can't prove that it works because you have no idea why they dismissed. And neither does Peoples, and neither do I.
There is something else we know in addition to the fact that the case is stopped. There's one more critical thing that we know is a fact. We know that the prosecutors don't want us to know why they stopped the case.
Oh, that's a very good point. That is like observation fucking gold right there.
Well, that's his opinion.
No, it's not.
Here again,
if they wanted us to know, they would tell us. We dismissed this case because of this.
You're back.
If they don't want us to know, no, it's not. It's a fact. If they wanted us to know, they would tell us.
Yes, perfect. Perfect.
But whatever it is to stop those cases is a secret. You're not allowed to know it.
I wonder if we could request private emails from these prosecutors. I wonder if we could get the answer to these questions.
Juan Galt would like you to believe that prosecutors don't want to get cases off their desk, that they don't care at all.
But in the same breath, we'll admit that they make mistakes and they fuck up. And then on the same channel, instead of admitting that prosecutors fuck up, he'll actually take the attention off of them and then put it on me anytime that I make a hiccup, and then exacerbate that and then make me out to be the fool instead of actually telling a more complete story, which is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We don't know why.
Don't blame me for making you look like a fool. You do that on your own, dude.
And we know another thing, too. We know that the judge does not have the power to force the prosecutor to provide you with jurisdiction or any paperwork for that matter.
Yeah,
the judge is powerless.
Yeah, did you hear the judge say he is powerless? He can't force the prosecutor to do that?
And that's correct.
So that judge is powerless.
All he could do was reschedule and hope that the prosecutor does it.
Yeah.
All he could do.
Yeah,
no,
what a pussy of a judge. What a fucking powerless little public servant that bastard in the black robe is.
Well, he's going to get your ass in court, isn't he? So he's got a little bit of power. But no, he doesn't. He doesn't tell the prosecutor what evidence to put on. That's what the judge told you. And he also told you that it was your attorney that asked for the 30 days, not the prosecutor.
It sounds like the prosecutor's waving around the big dick in that courtroom, not the guy in the black robe. He's just got a little tiny peen.
A little gavel handle.
A little gavel handle.
Well, no, he can't tell the prosecutor what evidence to produce any more than he can tell you.
Well, but according to you, Juan, he can tell BSBT to figure out what the jurisdiction is.
That's right.
Yeah. So he can tell me, but he can't tell the prosecutor.
Well, he knows the prosecutor already knows because the prosecutor has already presented prima facie evidence of jurisdiction.
Well, then why can't he just point to it? What's the big secret?
He has pointed to it. They tell him it's on the ticket.
Where at on the ticket? There's lots of things on the ticket.
Well, I've told you 3 times. I've told you 3 times the 3 things the judge looks at the ticket and sees the prima facie evidence of jurisdiction. I told you that.
You never told me.
Okay. First, the judge will, let's say the judge looks at the traffic ticket and he says, okay, let's see, this traffic ticket was issued at this address. Well, that address is within my territorial area, so that I have territorial jurisdiction. He looks and says, oh, Josh Lanto was given this citation here at this address, and that's within my territorial jurisdiction, so I have personal jurisdiction over Josh Lanto. And oh, hey, look here, it's a traffic ticket, and I'm a traffic judge, so I have subject matter jurisdiction. All that was presented to me by the prosecution, and that is prima facie evidence that jurisdiction exists.
So basically the same argument Al Capone used?
Yeah, exactly. And Mr. Galt, look at what Richard Fulmer said. I love this because some folks are starting to see this a little more clearly, and I think Richard Fulmer is starting to see it a little more clearly. The judge can't be involved in either side of the case.
And you know what my response to that is? It's duh.
Well, I wouldn't be putting down Richard Fulmer for making an acute. Yeah, he just made an acute observation, and then you just said duh to Richard Fulmer.
Well, that's because that's not an acute observation. That's like something I think my 6-year-old grandkid knows.
My opinion, that was a very astute and acute observation.
It's something. Well, then evidently you never took any civics courses in school.
How about answering Michelle's question, since Michelle, I think, is coming down the logic trail with us, and we're all holding hands down this logic trail, and we're starting to have a kumbaya moment. Answer this one, Mr. Galt, for Michelle, please.
Well,
Michelle
I don't know.
asks, that is not the judge's job, correct?
To answer questions, correct.
So that's his job. So you're all-powerful, the all-powerful almighty judge who has final say of everything that goes on in their courtroom is actually powerless. This emperor is starting to not have any clothes, Mr. Galt.
What do you say powerless? All I said was he doesn't have to answer your questions. How does that make him powerless?
So they're powerful over me, but powerless against the other side.
No,
but you haven't said he can really stop BSBT from asking them either.
No, the judge, he's not powerless against the prosecution either. He can tell, I've seen him a bazillion times tell the prosecutor, no, sir, that is not admissible as evidence. Your case is defunct, motherfucker. So, no, that you're absolutely wrong. A judge, all a judge does,
motherfucker. I've never heard a judge say that.
Yeah, me neither. But let me just tell you for the audience, because we've got 11 people in here and about 3 regular commenters. Well, really 2 with Michelle and Richard. Cops Have Duties has been in here commenting. But folks, feel free to put your questions in here. There are no dumb questions at this point because right now we're all on this logic trail together. So feel free to chime in and ask your questions because this is great. This is what I'm going for. And this is what I hope everybody is here for. But anyways, to continue on, Richard Fulmer just said that he's known that since 4th grade, but now all these courts are on TV. It's clear that some go too far. Mr. Galt, have you heard me say time and time again, these courts are headed to YouTube, and there's going to be some huge problems that come of this because you're going to have people like me that are going to question these courts, and we're going to put this on full display for the whole world to see. Do you see that or not?
I'm glad to see all this stuff on courts on YouTube and TV and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Well, but that wasn't the question. I didn't want to know if you were fine with that. Do you see any possible hiccups with all these courts being recorded? For example, I'll give you a quick example, okay? Imagine another judge in another jurisdiction, another court, answering the same motion that Slavin answered, but that judge says it in a different way, like Mr. Carroll says. Now you have 2 different explanations for the same thing. Don't you see that that's going to be a problem eventually?
Not really. Maybe you do. I don't.
Well, they all have to be on the same page, and they all have to point to the same thing. Like a military judge will only point one place for evidence of jurisdiction. Just like in a military court, when they only point to one place, then that means ding, 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 they got a winner. But if you point to different places, that makes everybody start to question it.
Well, I think
so.
You're
What I'm
being,
saying is, you legal professionals got to get on the same page and do it quick, and do it like it was yesterday, not today.
Well, that's what you think, but I don't, but you do. So you're entitled to your opinion.
Well, how can it be any other way?
Well, like I say, because you got diversity of humans and diversity of thought and the diversity of the way they express themselves.
So then is it safe to say if we're in the 50 states of the United States of America, every single judge should answer that it's prima facie evidence on the charging document that gives the court a rebuttable presumption of jurisdiction against you? Every single court across the United States is going to answer that solidly, 100% of the time, exactly like we just said it.
No. Because they don't have to answer at all.
Well, then it would be a nonsensical question like Merb said, and then there would be no point in having the conversation. We'd be talking irrational. So have we been talking irrational for the past, well, your 2 past videos, this past live stream, the live stream before that, we've been talking irrational this whole time.
Well, I've been talking rational that the jurisdiction is... The evidence of jurisdiction is on the traffic ticket, on the charging instrument, and I've been consistent with that ever since. I've also been consistent that the judge doesn't have to prove jurisdiction to you or even to the prosecution.
Well, do you know the most consistent thing about me is that I've always asked the same questions and I've gotten different answers. But the thing that's consistent about me is that I've asked the questions, the same questions.
And you've gotten the same answer by the majority of what I've seen you post. And that is that,
well, the majority, why wouldn't it be 100%? But it's not the majority. It's actually the minority that have actually said it the way you said it. Slavin is the first judge actually that I've seen say it the way you said it. That's why it makes me question, did you give him that script?
No.
Are you working a Mark Stevens PSYOP government script?
Yeah, that's it. No, the thing is that because he is also a constitutional law attorney, he teaches constitutional law, and I've taught.
Who, Merv or Judge Slavin?
Judge Slavin.
Yeah, I think I should go to his class, and then I should ask him about Houston versus Hill, and then ask him why his fucking treasonous fucking cops in his fucking city are treasonous bastards and are acting like pigs.
What's the definition of treason? What's the definition of treason?
Anything that's violating the Constitution and you're working in opposition as an enemy combatant?
No, that's not what the Constitution says treason is.
Well, give me the definite. Well, we disagree on our definition of sovereign citizen as well. The term sovereign citizen, not the individual word.
Okay, here it is. Listen carefully.
Okay.
It's Article 3, Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. That is treason.
Well, they're definitely giving aid and comfort to these treasonous pigs that are out there roaming the streets, those animals.
But they're not engaged in war.
I would disagree. They're in a war. They're engaged in there's a war on drugs.
Well, you can disagree all you want, but the Constitution.
Well, do cops enforce drug laws? Do cops enforce drug laws?
Enforcing drug law is not waging war against the United States, is it?
What do you think a war on drugs is?
Is it waging war against the United States government?
It's waging war against the people.
Is it waging war against the United States government?
Well,
against its citizens.
That's either a yes or no answer. Is it waging war against the United States government?
Supposedly the drug cartels are waging war against the United States, and the CIA is helping them.
Yeah, and there's fentanyl in everything, Mr. Galt.
So the CIA is committing treason by bringing the drugs in for the cartels.
Well, go prove that then.
They've admitted it.
Well, go prove it.
What?
You saying things, people, doesn't just magically make it true. And that's not waging war against the United States government.
No,
If you
they're
don't think the
assisting
CIA
the ones
is in
that
on
are
smuggling the
waging war.
drugs,
They're
yeah, I mean,
assisting the ones who are waging war. Isn't
yeah,
that part of your
even Mr.
definition?
Carroll. Yeah, even Mr. Carroll came up here and gladly admitted that he's pretty much sure that the CIA is in on the drug smuggling.
Pretty
Well,
much sure. That's
good for
long
him.
settled fact. That's not
Yeah,
even
that's
up
like,
for debate.
But it's not waging war against the United States government.
No, it's assisting the ones who are waging war against the United
yeah,
States.
you said bringing aid or comfort. Aid. What do you think aid is? When you turn a blind eye to something and you're like, hey, yeah, go ahead, slip all that fentanyl across our border.
No, that's not what waging war against the United States government is. Yeah. No matter how you twist it, no matter what tortured mental gymnastics you go for, that's not waging war against the United States government.
Doesn't your definition that you just read include aiding?
I heard aiding.
And what does that mean?
Aiding.
Assisting?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
sending a
helping?
plane over to fly the drugs. Here, use a CIA plane to bring those drugs into Florida. That's aiding.
Or here,
Is
your
that-
submarine
is
magically
that-
isn't detected. Your submarine wasn't detected that day because we were running routes like on the opposite shoreline.
So you're equating drug smuggling and running as the same thing as attacking the United States government, like let's say Japan did in Pearl Harbor.
I'm talking about treasonous government, like on the local level with the cops enforcing unconstitutional ordinances, and then equating that with CIA at the federal level assisting cartels and bringing drugs in, and we've got corruption from the top to the bottom.
But that's not treason.
Well, your definition is treason against the United States, but I think that when me or BSBT is talking about treason, we're talking about treason to the people or treason, to the Constitution, right? And you're talking about specifically treason to the United States, to the government.
As the
right?
Constitution defines it. You throw out the word
As the
Constitution.
Constitution defines it, but
Yeah.
we have our own,
Could you,
definition
Mr. Galt,
of
could
what
you look up?
treason is, right? I mean, any
Yeah.
cop that is trying to
Usurp
stop
the Constitution.
the free press, or free speech, that's treason, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah,
right?
there
We
you go.
consider it that. Yeah, but we
that's-
don't try and go and put cuffs on somebody and put them in jail.
Yeah, we just try to publicly shame the shit out of them.
That's the difference.
Yeah,
We
I
can have
prefer
our
to publicly,
opinions.
absolutely publicly shame them for what they're doing.
More power.
And if nobody else agrees, then nobody else agrees, but they do agree.
Yeah, and on a definition, there was a word I was going to ask you for your definition on. Oh, one word. Can we define harassment? Can we define that?
Yeah, that's what I've been experiencing with you guys dogpiling me.
You came here.
Okay, well,
if anything, you're harassing us.
Yeah, if anything, I'll give Juan Galt something. At least that was like the funniest thing I think Juan Galt has actually said on this program.
Ever.
Oh, no, I've said funnier shit. Come on.
Well, yeah, occasionally, but the funniest is denying the jurisdiction thing. But I just wanted to come back to one thing because Michelle asked a question. Don't different circuits have different rulings as far as courts? I think she's talking about. And what I'm talking about is all 50 states, according to Mr. Galt, all 50 states, all judges should have the same response about prima facie evidence used on the charging document, which is a traffic ticket, used to establish a rebuttable presumption of guilt on part of the defendant. And so you would expect that consistent answer in all 50 states from every single judge. Did I summarize that correctly, Mr. Galt?
Well, you may expect it, you may not realize it, but yes, Michelle's correct. There's different circuits, and many times circuits will disagree on certain issues. And when that happens, many times the Supreme Court will take up that issue and make it apply throughout the United States. Now, if it's just circuit, let's say a 5-state circuit, a judge will say something and it'll only apply to those 5 states, nowhere else. It's like, for instance, in the 10th Circuit, which I practiced in, judge came down and said women can walk around topless just like men. They have that right.
That would be a fantastic world to live in.
I just want to clarify one thing for Michelle.
You can do it in 5 states, but that decision doesn't apply to any state outside of that circuit, and that's what Michelle was showing.
Okay, and people, what did you want to add?
Yeah, because Michelle seems confused, because I'm not saying that the war on drugs is a war. Like, I didn't declare war. I didn't declare that anybody was fighting a war. But Juan Galt was talking about the definition as in the Constitution that would apply to the government. Committing treason is waging war against the government or aiding somebody that's in. Not getting the quote right. But the government declared a war on drugs. I mean, obviously, it's not a real war. They didn't go and get permission from Congress and call it an actual war. But
yeah, but
I don't think it's a war on drugs. I mean, it's really just.
It's a war on drugs. It's not. It's a war on drug. It's not a war on the United States government.
I mean, there is a war. There is a war between the government and the citizenry of the United States at this point. I mean,
it could become
SWAT vehicles.
It could become a war.
Well, but look at the SWAT vehicles. Even if it hasn't fledged fully into a all-on conflict, it still goes on the local level. You see SWAT teams with armored vehicles. You see militarized police on your own soil. I've recorded militarized police.
It feels like a war.
I've recorded. Yeah, Mr. Galt, do you know I've recorded militarized police in Grand Rapids when they killed a black man that was unarmed?
No, I didn't know that, but more power to you.
Yeah, so I've seen the militarized police, and nobody can tell me that like it doesn't exist or it's not out there or I'm speaking crazy, because some judges like to tell me I'm crazy. Some other YouTubers try to convince me I'm crazy. These gaslighting YouTubers that try to also convince me that calling CPS on somebody isn't a big deal. Oh, Mr. Galt, let me get your opinion on something real fast. Today, I told KFAR that CPS could get called on him, right? And he said, well, he wants severe consequences for the person that calls CPS falsely on him. Do you think he's correct in wanting justice like that?
Well,
because I think he is. I think he's justified, absolutely 100% justified, that if somebody called CPS on him with a false allegation, they should severely punish the anonymous caller with the false allegation. I agree with that.
I would agree with that. I think anybody who is falsely accused wants retribution to the person that falsely accused them.
Right. So the person that feels that way, that's an accurate way to feel, correct?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a human part of human nature.
You've just taken their gaslighting attempts and completely eroded away any of their gaslighting ability, them as a group. But thank you for answering that, Mr. Galt. I'm sorry. I was going to say let's come back to the discussion,
but
I don't know.
Context, so I'll add it in. Okay, just for context, BSBT has never made a claim against anybody with CPS, but it's KFAR and his crowd that do that to him.
Right. They do that to me, Mr. Galt. So should I want them to pay, or should I want them to stop doing what they're doing?
Well, I can't answer for you. I can only answer for me. If I was in your shoes, and I would say yes, if I was in your shoes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because with that, I think we might wind this down. But if you guys have any any idea on the whereabouts of this guy right here, I just want to put this out there for anybody watching right now. We really need to identify this suspect because he was last seen at a Walmart and he was trying to shove cinnamon rolls up his ass. And I think he used the wide can. I'm pretty sure it was the wide can that he tried shoving up there. But if anybody knows the identity of this guy right here, please let us know. Any final words from our panel guests?
Bucket troll in the butt.
Bucket troll in the butt. Yeah. We have people in the house. Mr. Galt, any parting words?
Nope. I've had fun as always, Josh.
Well, I've had fun as well. I hope we can play this back. I hope you can clip out some bits so we can put that in a video on your channel, especially the part where I got 2 cases to stop bringing charges against me. That would be fantastic if we could chop those parts out, along with political activists and along with that, the right to press is an individual right, because those were the key points of this discussion. And we can come back to
the frog says that there's a difference between the press and the official press. He tries to draw a line in between the press and the official press. Of course, the line is actually between the people and persons, but the frog wants to make the sovereign sit argument that there's 2 types of persons, basically, that there's the press and the official press.
Yeah, and there's no such thing. So, Frog, I did have Frog on the last program, and we ended the live stream early because Shiz was about to do a expose on a murder victim, and but Shiz pushed her live stream back, so we ended up ending the live stream early. But Frog, if you're listening, if you listen to this, Frog, you're more than welcome back because we would like to actually discuss that issue in more detail, or at least I would. So
as long as he sticks the facts to the facts that BSBT told him.
Yes, please just stick to facts. And Mr. Galt, I appreciate you clarifying and saying some things were legal opinion and some things were legal fact. That is, I appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to shut this down, guys. I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you, Michelle, Rising Sun Media, for just announcing yourself. Cops Have Duties, Richard Fulmer, and anybody else that stuck it out to this point. AZ Unfiltered, I saw you in here. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.